All right, hey, what's up everyone? Today we're going to talk about how to connect Payload CMS and TanStack Start. I've heard a lot of good things about TanStack. I've barely worked with it, but I understand that it is meant to be a challenger to Next.js, so I'm really excited to have a new technology to mess around with and to pair it with one of my favorite technologies in Payload CMS. So by the end of this video, I'm hoping to have a working monorepo with both Payload CMS as the backend, TanStack Start as the front end, and then using the local API on the TanStack Start side of things in order to have a good project up and going. So really excited to dive into this one. A lot of people have asked me to do something along the lines of using TanStack Start. I think some people have asked me for a course. I don't know TanStack that well yet. I don't know if it's something that I'm going to be using to rip and replace any projects. It's a busy season, so it's a little bit difficult to do that unless I do it here on stream. So maybe I might do it depending on how today goes, but I like the idea of monorepos. Some people would use this more, maybe using Payload as an SDK instead, but here I'm just going to use the monorepo structure so I can treat it as if it is part of the same project and have shared types across, because I do know one of the key things about TanStack Start, which I will pull up now. Just looking at the website, I have my terminal window open underneath here, so we'll get to that here in a second to set up the project. But I mean, it's marketed the same way as Next.js is. It's a full stack framework, so it's meant to be full stack for React, which is what Next.js is. It's a full stack framework for React, but also for Solid. And so this comes with SSR, streaming, server functions, all of that. One thing that I have noticed though is that it does not come yet with React server components. So that is going to be a challenge here in a minute when we start actually building out the project, because we do rely on server components in Next.js to render payload data. So there are workarounds. Doesn't really matter. And as far as I know, it is something that is coming. So we will see how things go. So let's go ahead and jump in here. So first, let me just pull up the build script that we need here to start from scratch. Get started. I'm going to start a new project from scratch using the CLI. Great. So bring this over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my tutorial repos. So change directory somewhere in here. And then I think I have a monorepo, and then there. Then we're going to make a directory. And so in here, I'm going to have TanStack Start. So this is a new folder. And then inside that TanStack Start folder, create another one. That's going to be called TanStack Start and Payload. Change directory. Ooh, I should spell first. TanStack Start. TanStack Start and Payload. Probably would have been easier to not do it that way, but that's fine. All right, so I know the create script for create payload app, pnpx create payload app. So we'll let this go. This is going to be called CMS. We'll use the blank template because we're only using the backend. We'll use Mongo. I might already have a database named CMS, so we'll take a look at that in just a second. But then for the other side of things, let's go ahead and, at the top here, we're going to use pnpm create TanStack Start and pull out the latest. And then we'll call this one website. I am not familiar with Biome yet, so I've seen a lot of good things about that. I should actually do some research into it, so I'm going to take a note and move on here. So I'm going to stick with ESLint for now. We will just use an agnostic deployment adapter because I don't know what I would deploy to. And then add-ons. Don't think I'm going to need any of these. Yeah, I don't need any of these. I have to remember how to do this. Yeah, it's just enter. Okay. Would you like an example? None. And so let that do its thing. Then oh, it's already done. Now I can open up WebStorm, and I'm going to open this project real quick. And there will be an example of this repo after I'm done. So I will post that link in here when I'm ready. So we're done with the terminal. I can drop this on, put it in the right side. Now we start on the monorepo. So first, let's clean up our CMS. I don't use VS Code, so I'm going to get rid of that. Then we've got our source, the app. I don't need the front end, so I can just delete that outright. And I think that's all I need to delete from there. I'm going to add a few other things. So I need in my app to add index.ts, and this is going to be one of the ways that we link between TanStack Start and Payload CMS. So I'm going to add that. Then we're going to export. So this is going to be from our payload config. Default as config from, did I put this in the wrong spot? I did. This should be in the source. Sorry. Let me actually delete that. So in my source directory, I'm going to add an index.ts file. Now I'll export default as config, and that's going to be from our payload config. Then we're going to export everything from our payload types, which is going to help keep us type safe over there on TanStack Start. So we're good there. Then we're going to come over to our website. Oh, first I want to go into, that's not what I wanted to do. Sure, I'll use this anyway. See what that does for me. And then we're going to do CMS, and I'm just going to do TanStack. And none of this is going to be deployed, so I don't really care if these secrets are leaked because they're generated by payload, and this is my local database. So one thing I want to see, if I go to config, we'll see if this is, maybe that, neither here nor there. I was trying to see how the environment variables are different now because of that plugin that I just installed real quick. All right, so now over in TanStack, let's close this up really quickly. And then I do need all of what's here in the source, the components, the data, the integration. Oh wait, no, seeing things now. So I've got components, data, and routes. That's all I need there. Before I do that, let's go up to our root directory, and we're going to create a new file, and that's going to be called pnpm workspace.yaml. And this is where we're setting up our monorepo, which we have our packages, which will include our CMS as well as our website. So now we need to set up a package.json file. Hit add, and here we need a name, which will be TanStack Payload monorepo, version 1, description. I will include nothing. I don't think I actually need that. Do license. What are the licenses here? Yeah, I'll just do MIT, whatever. Don't need author. Let's do main of index. And then now we can add our scripts, which will have one for dev payload, which will change directory CMS pnpm dev. I also want to do one for the website, which does the same thing. I want to do our generate types. That way I can do it from the top of the monorepo instead of changing directory. So I can do generate types, and then this will be change directory. That should be right. And then do the same thing for our import map. And I'm sure this will work. We'll see though. That should be good. We've got our workspace. We've got our package. Just looking at some of these other things we need to work on. And I do have an example to work off of. So we'll see what problems we end up running into. So I will wait to work on that. Don't think I need to do anything here, but I do need to add to my environment variables in my website, new file, a .env file. And this is just going to be copy and pasted from here. So we're going to go for it. Let's just run pnpm I. Oh, not quite what I needed to do, because also in my package.json. All right, so package.json, I know we need to import our payload, and we're going to do the latest version because I know that's what gets brought over. And then we need to add our CMS, of course, which is our workspace. I don't think I need to add website to my package.json up here. I do not. Okay, so let's run pnpm I again, see if this works. All right, so let's take a look here. If I do npm dev website, see what happens. And then come over here, dev payload. Just make sure we have both things working. Oh, I need to change the port because that, for some reason, starts on the same port. So I believe I need to go to my package.json here. Nope, that needs to be here. So if it's running on the same port, I can change this. I believe it's just P, and then I should be able to do 3001. I believe that's correct. We'll see in a second. Yep, that was right. All right, so payload should work. If I go to localhost 3001 and then do admin, because I got rid of the front end, so 3000 wouldn't work. But if I do 3000 here, we see the TanStack Start here in a second, and then our admin is loading up over here. Perfect. First step is done. We have our monorepo together. Now let's get them communicating. I do know that if I go to my website, I believe it is routes. So I am still learning TanStack. Give me a break here. I still need to figure out how all this stuff works. But if I go to the index, this is what we're seeing here. So we've got our icon zap, flexible servers, yada, yada. So then that means this is the page that I want to add some data. So what we can do is in our index, I'm going to first make sure that all this is working. So if I import page, CMS, source, I don't think I have a page installed yet. So let's actually do user. And so that should be good. It's used but never read, but it should be there. So we should be good, but that's just the type. So that's not going to be helpful to show data, but it gets us close. So now in order to get data, since this is not a server component, that's a key thing that I brought up in the beginning. We can't just go out and use the local API just anywhere. We have to do it in a server function. So I'm going to say get user. I have to make sure that this is actually going to work like I want it to, but we need to create a server function, and that's from React start. And then we pass in a handler, which will be an async. And so as I do this, know that I don't know if this is the best pattern for this. Typically, I would probably put this in a separate file. That way the logic's just separated, and then call get user into the actual page. But we'll see how this actually works together. So we can do our constant of get payload, and we can await our import of payload, and then get our config, await import CMS source, equal. All right, so far I think we're okay. Oh, I missed one and I did this wrong. So then I do that again. So that should be good. All right, so here we can do our constant of payload, await, get payload, just normal payload stuff. If you've seen any of my videos, this is essentially all I'm doing. I can just return the data, await payload, find. Then we should be able to do a collection of, I don't have pages, it's users. There we go, and then get users up there. So here I am learning also TanStack. I know payload very well. I know monorepos relatively well now that I've done it a couple times, but here now I'm learning a new framework as we go. All right, so in the route though, we need, let's wrap this so I can see a little bit better. We need to add to this, we've got the component app. And then if I come down here, we're going to add a loader, which will be an async. Go to a function, constant of data equals await get user. Yep, so everything's looking right. My IDE is giving me my type hints. All right, so constant data, await get pages. Then we're going to return that data. There we go. Okay, and then we can now get our data down here. So constant of data is going to be route use loader data. Then we can get our user, which will be data user. I don't even think I need to cast this as a user. I think it's going, nope, it doesn't recognize it. So it did just a second ago. Oh, duh. All right, so I say I know payload well, and then I just mess all that up. All right, so now that already casts as a user. I don't need to use this type. It already knows that this is a user. So that's good with me. But now if I log my user, I should be able to get my email. Currently there is none. So what we can do there, just so it's still showing. So I need a fallback because I don't have a user. So I can just type in my generic test information. Then if I come over here again, now I can see my email address. So what I can do though, hopefully to show this off, I don't actually know if this is going to work, but I should be able to get my headers. I'm going to use some code here from the chat. So we're going to import get request headers from start server. And then in my user, I'll be able to do perfect. I have a feeling I'll need to await these. Nope, it doesn't say await. So then believe I might have to do a little bit of research on this one because I don't typically do this. So I can do await payload auth. No, it should be, let me do the research. All right, so if I come over to payload's website template, which is not going to be this one. That's fine, it gets me to the repo. Then I go to the templates, website, source, app, front end. So typically this would be done in Next.js, but since this is a headless CMS, we can do whatever we want. So here, the page is a template, slug. Oh, I should be looking actually not at that one, but at the blank template. Sorry, y'all, clicking around here a little bit. Templates, blank, source, app, front end, page. All right, so here, there's the headers, await get headers. It is this. Okay, so that I can just, sometimes a little copy and paste never hurt nobody. So I can do this. Payload's defined down lower. So now, instead of returning that, I will return the user. Now this, I'm not sure if this is going to work. Vita as user. Now if I refresh, let's see what's happening over here. Oh, do I need to import this? Oh, that's the wrong thing. React start. This is why you don't ever trust autocomplete. All right, so now I can still see that my user email is there. If I go to my users, let's add a name. So if I go to my source collections, users, let's add a new field. We're just gonna add name of name. That should pop up there. Just do my name, hit save, come over to the starter. Then different index, which it is right there. We got our user email. This should be name, which has not come through yet because I've not generated types. Let's restart this server. There we go. Interesting. So we're gonna have an error to fix, it looks like, but I have a solution most likely. For now, let's go to, instead of TanStack Start, we'll just say hello, and then drop in user.name. Oh, okay, perfect. So now if it's empty, then we don't have to worry about it. And of course, that means email is also available. So, and this is coming from Payload, so this works great, and I really enjoy that. That works great, so this works exactly like the Payload starter now, but of course there's the documentation and all of that. So we've got quite a bit of time. Let's move on to adding some pages. So here I need to understand some of the documentation, because this is going to be really small for you guys to see, so I need to figure this out a little bit better. There we go. And Tailwind's already installed, so we're good there. Build from scratch, already did. Comparison, don't really care. Start, migrate, routing. Here we go. Love that this is my first time really using TanStack, and it's just, I'm starting to understand why people are switching. So that was actually very smooth. I understood very little going into it, but I liked that. All right, the router.tsx. So let's explore here a little bit. Router.tsx. It does not look like there's anything that I need to touch here right now. File-based routing is actually what I'm looking for, so that's great. This is exactly what I was looking for. So what we can do is we can create so the index is the home page, so that's great. We can do a post. So let's do, for routes, we'll do a new file, and it's gonna be posts, and we'll do $, what it would be, probably just slug.tsx. So let's add that, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So this is going to be fun. So the root is like layout. So this would be the layout of Next.js, just as the example. So to do one-to-one, this would be index. So this would wrap everything, which means that the header would be carrying over to the post. And so, oh, it automatically does one for me. Love that. So now if I go to posts blog 1, okay, very handy. So the header stays. This is the little badge that shows up. Great. So now we can render some data doing similar things. But first, let's go ahead and stop that, because we're going to come to, I don't need to do anything too intense. What we'll do is just go to our collections, and we're going to create a new posts.ts, import our collection config. We'll export a constant called posts, which will be a collection config. Set that equal. We just need the slug, which will be posts, and then some fields. I won't worry about rich text quite yet, though a React component would do great, so that makes it easier. Yeah, it's really nice. There's a lot of good developer. First of all, this is way faster, so the developer experience is just wildly different. And that's saying, like, I haven't done a whole lot with Next on TurboPack yet. That is one thing, but it's just a nice little piece of, for lack of better words, code sugar that it automatically did that page for me instead of returning a 404. Like, it's just a really nice experience to have that instead. So we'll figure this out in more detail though. So we're going to go to fields, and we're going to add a name, which would be a title, text. We're going to need a slug field, which will take title. I don't want to worry about rich text, but I am going to, because that's a big part of Payload CMS. Images, yeah, why not? So we'll do an image and try and get that rendering as well. So we're not going to do blocks or anything, but we can do an image, type relation to media. We can now register that in our payload config, do posts. That's imported. This messed me up in Astro, so I'm going to change this to be not an alias import. So let's save that. That should generate some types. Then if I go to my posts and create a new post, test post, this is some test content. We're going to go ahead and add some styles here. We'll create new. I'm going to drag in a file. Why not? This is what I'm using right now. So then test image. And then if I save this, the slug gets created, and now I have this test post, and that media got added up here. Great, that's a huge image. I would not ever put that into production. So now we just copy this pattern. I'm going to get the server function. I don't need the request header. So what I'm going to do, just to make this easier on myself, I'm going to not import that there. Import that there. I'm going to trust my IDE. Oh, I need to. This is why I don't trust my IDE. So we just need. Perfect. So let's grab the loader. And this is going to be, I'm going to change this to get post by slug. Then we'll return that data. And then this, I'm going to copy. And now normally I wouldn't copy and paste code like this, but what can I do? Then this should go up one more level. I don't need headers. I do need that. And then I can get post by slug. And then we can return await payload find collection posts where slug equals. I have a feeling I'm going to have to use something like use params. Oh, I don't know if this is actually what's supposed to happen. All right, so this is what I'm supposed to be doing here. What would I do here? We have the slug. Now this is jacked up, so let's see. Let me look at the documentation more to understand that a little bit better. So head outlet scripts. I'm looking for fetching code execution patterns, environment variables, server functions. There it is. Okay. So we have our get post by slug. Then we can use an input validator, which needs to be imported. Of course, it did not input. So that means I'm doing that wrong. All right. So create server function, const create server function, get, I assume is by default. Then it's before the handler. Okay. Input validator. then something like post schema. Then I need to define the post schema, which should just be the post TypeScript file, which that's not the right place, but so I'm going to assume that that's correct. And then the handler, where we can pass in the data. So this, yes, I did mean post. So post schema set to post, which should be, what is happening? All right, is it because I didn't generate types? Shouldn't be, because it is there. All right, so index CMS source. Oh, okay, I understand. So no, it doesn't quite work that way. How will I do this? Import C from Zod, which I have a feeling is not installed. CD website, add Zod. Oh, am I just putting in the string? Thank you. All right. And that's right in the examples too, isn't it? All right, so let's do input validator. We'll do data, slug, string. Don't need to add the Zod part to it. Don't need that part to it. All right, the AI stuff is starting to get in my way. All right, so data, slug, string, data. So there's that. Now we get the async data, input validator, data, slug, string, passes data, handler, async, data. Now let's take a look here. Advanced is not quite what I'm looking for, but hey, look, there's the request, the headers. Get post by slug. The slug, we can await that. Where this. Okay. Progress, I think. Oh, wait, so this I bring up to the loader. So then, all right, bunch of stuff happening here. Yeah, this is hard to do on the fly. I'm sure it's not actually as difficult as it is. Like, you know, when you watch anybody do anything live, like on the spot, of course, like I'm going to struggle. And you guys are probably seeing things you're like, oh my gosh, why isn't he just getting it? It's because when you're super hyper focused on what you're doing, you miss a lot. So it's hard though to, while you're like talking on camera and having a conversation while coding, like it's hard to slow down enough to be able to pick up the simple things here. So we can look up fetching. Okay, so we can do our constant of post, and we can do, we're gonna need our route, use loader data. Then we need our loader to be async. All right, so what I need to do is get our slug. So import Z from Zod, get that back in here. So input validator, we can do Z object slug Z string. So that works. We have the slug from the post. So this is the part that's getting me right now. So the handler, let's just see if we can look at the documentation here. So handler, actually probably create server function. So now loader, params, okay, so that's right. And then params slug. Then we can do slug. Hold on, I did that wrong. Where am I? So that's right, okay, and then handler. Yeah, I'm surprised that they wouldn't have an example of fetching from a slug. So I wonder, I saw one that was post ID. Yeah, so they show you how to define it. And yes, of course, I can do the research and figure this out, but then they don't show you how to use it. All right, so you would call with get post slug data slug. Yes. All right, so get, that's right, because data is the actual name. Data slug params slug. All right, so loader still sees type as unknown, but post should be type post, which that's not going to work like I want it to, because what this is actually doing, yeah, so this is fetching all of the, so it's an array of documents. So what we'll do, let's do a limit of 1, and then do the logic here. So then docs from payload and get post. Yeah, I'm gonna try and run this anyway and see what we get. It is definitely gonna be a type error, so we're gonna see what happens. Yeah, maybe I should, let me restart here. So let's do generate types, which is done typically automatically, and then I can do dev, let's just do the website actually, because I don't need payload running right now. So I can do pnpm dev website, and let's see what happens over in the post and see if we get some errors here. All right, promise post is not assignable to, so that is the type that is the post. So let's get rid of that real quick. But of course I need the data. Okay, let's leave that there. Oh, I guess I could pull up some examples here because they probably have a few. So if I go to GitHub, all right, so we go to examples, React, source, we can go to routes here. So we can look at their route, create file route. That is correct. All right, so let's see, maybe do I need to pass in the params differently? So we can do params and then do, I'm just gonna do whatever this example says essentially. So we can get our slug, get the slug from there. Then we can, so the parse isn't really necessary. So we'll get rid of that. We don't have a search, so then the loader is all we need. Then do I need async? Yes, because I'm getting a promise. So then we have params, and then we can pull out our slug, just like they have here. Replace that with just slug. And then we can skip all of this and just await that. And still something's wrong with the loader. Promise unknown. It's not assignable to type promise. Okay, we have route component there. So this isn't using a server function. Let's see if we can find some route using a server function. Oh wait, it probably is. So let's go look. Let's go back to the invoice ID, and we're looking for utilities, mock to-dos. So that's right, handler. So we're getting the slug, we're passing the slug. Maybe, let's do pnpm dev CMS payload. So that's running, website, let's see if I can get this running again. Kills right away. So let's try killing the node modules and try again. Let me copy and paste some code from a stranger on the internet. That should be good. So, yep, clean shell. Got rid of all of the TypeScript errors except for data here because it's not being used yet. I think the real problem is that I'm not doing this in a separate file. So, import get payload from payload. Like that should be correct, right? Then import config, that should be right. Then we can return await, first payload equals await get payload, pass in the config. So that's where stuff is messing up, I believe, because the import, that's right. So I need to add this, change that up a little bit. I'm used to not doing that. So let's grab this stuff. All correct except for this, which needs to go up level. All right, so everything is still working. Then we have payload, which is not declared, or is declared but not read, and then data. So now if we do return await payload find, and we don't actually need this at all. All right. So that just breaks everything. Okay, so it's the payload find that is doing this. So I think the issue might be, this is how the rich text gets returned. It may be trying to do too much. Maybe if I just do select slug true, see what happens. Yeah, so now it doesn't return anything else. So it may be a rich text, which I kind of figured would be the case. Do image true. Yeah, so let's see if we just get something working. That's the key. Still nothing. But at least I don't have any type errors, so that's nice. But something's definitely wrong with the cache, so let's kill that. Delete, delete, pnpm I. All right, try that again. That's not what I wanted to do. pnpm dev website. All right, so all of that should be good. Vite ts config, okay, Vite react. All right, so this is where I think I saw some things coming up, and then do external. Payload CMS. We'll just see what happens when I do this. I don't know if this is actually anything that's necessary, but we'll see. Okay, and then I'm just gonna copy this as well. See what happens. All right, let's go back. Let's recap, because if I'm going to turn this into an actual video, I need to explain what I just did. So this was something that did happen to me when I was working with the like I practiced this, so I wanted to make sure that I understood a little bit of what I was doing. And so one of the things that I had to do was figure out what here was messing stuff up. So here we can see stuff is starting to render, and I wonder if now I can add in my like everything. No, I still can't do that. So rich text is going to be interesting to figure out, but I now have my slug in my image. And do I have anything other than that? No. So blog one, but this should actually be test blog or test post. Now we can see if we're actually going to get something here. So before I actually go back and try and see if I did something, I want to make sure that this works. And it seems like it did. All right, so let's explore a little bit here. What ended up happening is something in here got messed up. So my loader function works. It's loader async params. We're pulling out the slug. We await get post by slug, and we pass in the data, which is the slug. The slug then goes into get post by slug. By creating a server function, we'll validate the input to make sure that we're getting the data that we need in the way that we need it. And then we'll use a handler function, which will be an async function that takes the data. From the data, then we can use the await import for our payload to set get payload. Do the same thing for config over here from CMS source, and then we'll get payload. From there, we can await our payload.find and get collection posts, limit it to 1, where slug equals our data slug, and then just select anything that is not our rich text. For some reason, that triggers an issue over here. If we go to our Vite config, where there's an issue with something either in the SSR, and we can actually figure this out real quick. So it's not that. Well, let's confirm that it's not that. Perfect, and then just confirm here. So if we come over to our Vite config, we need to add this optimize dependencies and exclude payload from it. Seems to be just some infrastructure issues. That means we need to exclude a few packages. No big deal, everything works exactly like we need it to. And that's gonna make a great video. All right, so we have a slug, great, not very helpful, but if we change this from slug, we have our post and our post is working. So we have our slug, let's get rid of this, and we're going to use our post, and we can get a couple of things from our post. The first is going to be it should be from our post docs, and we're gonna pull out only one. We're gonna get our title, slug, and image. Did I not add title to my slug? Let's get rid of that. We're gonna go back to our posts. We do have title. Oh, I didn't select it. So I'm gonna come up here and select my title, set that to true. Now we're going to add title here. Let's actually do it this way. We will set in H1, which will be title, and we'll refresh. Love how fast this is. Class name, let's do something like 5 text 5XL, text bold. Let's add a class name. We'll just do MX of 8, change that to just M. All right, so there's that. We don't need the slug. And now I know there's a different image processor for how TanStack does things. So let's take a look. We're going to look for their image component. If I do have one criticism, yes, I love this. This is fast. It's very good. I think I can make it make sense. I think the file structure is going to be great. The documentation, now I thought Payload's documentation needed some updating, but it should not be this hard to find their image component by typing in image. So again, could just be me, but I'm going to blame somebody else. All right, so if we then go to, it should be in the basics. And actually, yes, I know that this is a release candidate, but that's good to know to use the image tag. I'm so used to Next having its own thing, but I remember seeing something though, so I wanted to go take a look. They had an image component here with start versus next, migrate from next. Like they had a whole image section here, or at least I thought they did. Maybe I missed or misunderstood it. I promise I saw this. There it is. Here in TanStack Start, you can use a package called unpick for, okay, so it's not necessary, or at least it's not something that I have to actually do. All right, so let's go back to here. So we can add our image. Now here we would want to do a function to check if it's a document. So something like function is doc. Man, can I do this from scratch? doc any doc is t. That's not exactly how that function goes, but that should work, where I can do is doc image, pass in our media type. This is not how I would do this function. It works. It does what I want it to do. So this helps keep this type safe. And then I can do that. And then we can do a width of, we're going to do 640 by 360, which is just a 16 by 9 image. Can I not define my function there? All right, fine. I won't define it then. I'll just do type of image does not equal string, just to keep things simple. Do image. So if image exists, type of image is not a string. Oh, I wonder if I just messed up my image tag, possibly. Here, let me try one more thing. I did just mess that up. Okay. All right, so log image, make sure I'm getting the stuff I need. So that means I don't think I'm running, So let's do, this should be HTTP localhost 3001. Then I believe I need to go to my payload config. I may have to restart something when I do this, but set my cores to be, that's not what that's supposed to be. All right, so I see the image, I see the URL. I don't see an image here. All right, so if we go back to our slug, we see the image, turn, so this should be true. Guess maybe let's flip it. Yeah, okay. So something else is going on there. All right, so let's redo that portion. I don't know if it's returning true. It doesn't seem like it. In lieu of actually having the function, I'm just going to set my constant of featured image. It's going to be image as media. This is not how I would normally do it, but this will work. There's the image. All right, so let's set that up properly. No, this is fine. We'll check if there is an image, and if there is, we'll return all of this. And I don't want to use the width and height for this because it's a pretty big image. We've got our title. We've rendered our image using the featured image, casted as media, and that's showing up now. What I don't have enough time to figure out is if I go to my content and add true, it breaks, at least it throws type errors. But if I add my content here, so is it just that the post will potentially be undefined? Post, we can do as post, which this should actually be paginated docs, unknown as paginated docs. So now we get the object, which is fine because we don't have an actual renderer. I do wonder if I can import, this is going to be from payload CMS rich text lexical HTML. I think we have to install that first. So this is going to break some stuff, but that's okay. Then, yes, run pnpm I, but I can get convert. Pretty sure that's the function. I don't know if I'm going to be able to run it here though, so we're going to find out here in a second. I don't think that's the function. So let's go look at the payload docs to HTML. All right, so did this not get installed here? So if I go to my website, we go to package.json. Oh, okay, I understand what I did wrong. We will install rich text lexical, go to slug. That should import just fine. All right, so then we have this, which should just be able to be data or content. See what happens. Okay, perfect. So then I can do the React thing where I can dangerously set inner HTML, data, content. There we go. So now we have some rich text content. So that is that. I'm going to take a second here to ask chat, AI chat, not you chat, why we're getting these errors. So I don't know if it's going to know. This is brand new technology. And we're going to see if this has any insight into what's going on. It's going to help me slow down as well. All right, so let's see if this is going to be nonsense. We'll leave. I need to be able to read this. We're looking here. So this is how we fix it apparently. Interesting. I don't know if I love this. but we're going to try it. Constant of, it is a TypeScript error, so it might know that. So then if we do return result as unknown as type of result, which is very interesting to write it that way, but I don't think that's right. But maybe I could do as unknown as paginated docs post. So that didn't work, didn't expect it to. I should see if I can use any Opus on this. If not, I've got Claude Code. But it is always a struggle trying to figure this stuff out. Oh, I don't think this is gonna work either. We're gonna give it a shot. Well, got rid of the type error. Huh. I don't know how I feel about that, but it works. So then, okay, interesting. All right, so I could set my own type, but I kind of tried that already. So if I do, let me try it this way first. So let's do interface post props, and we're going to set this equal to, that's wrong. We're just going to do paginated docs post, or better idea. So we're going to do post as an array. Let's set this as type not used. So then if I set results as post props, that doesn't work. Okay, so this does work. I don't want to have to reconstruct the whole type, so I'm not going to do that. Unless, so let's try if we do post. I don't know if this is actually how this works, but if we wait, no, this is not going to work. Okay. So in order to get our content, which is rich text, we can get rid of this select because we do want to pull out all of our data, but we want to get rid of this type error. So instead, we're going to set this to be a constant and set this to be constant of result, and we'll await our payload find, and then we're going to return our result. But in order to get rid of the type error, we need to do JSON parse our result and then stringify that result inside the parse function. And that gets rid of our type errors, and we can see over here that this is some test content shows up. So of course we're in development mode, so I can write anything here and change this. And when I save, it's automatically going to come over here when I refresh. But this is not going to do anything to purge the cache right now. So we're in development mode. This is going to work when I make any changes because nothing is being cached. It's all dynamic. So once we were to deploy this, and I may come back to this project and actually work on something to then deploy, we would have to change that, knowing that we don't want to just have a fully static website. So looking forward to digging into this one more, but I do hope that this video was helpful. But that's it for TanStack Start and Payload CMS. Super easy to get up and running on a monorepo and passing in the types, so you can use the local API and keep your project completely type safe. If you found this video helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Your support means so much to me, so doing that helps me reach other people who could benefit from learning this technology as well. I have a newsletter, Next in Dev. You can find that at my website, nlvcodes.com. I have a Discord. All of this is in the description of this video. But that's it for TanStack. Looking forward to coming back to this project, and I will see you in the next video.